Hi, it's me, Renjit. If you enjoyed this episode, I request you to leave us a review. This will help us to reach more great podcast listeners like you. Thank you. Hello and welcome to FS Brew's first Fireside chat with industry leaders. I am Renjit Philip. I advise startups on their digital business models, go-to-market strategies, funding, and financials. I work with an Insurtech called Symbo, where we help insurers, brokers, and agents in going digital. In case you're wondering, my co-host Vidya Veerapandian is on maternity leave. Both she and the baby are hale and hearty, which is great. For today's episode, we have with us two stalwarts from the industry, Dr. Sanjeev Jha and Adrit Raha. Dr. Sanjeev Jha is the founder and principal of Strumng, a niche consultancy services focused on developing competencies of insurers, insurance brokers, distributors, service providers, and emerging insurtech entities. He's a consultant to Fairfax for their Asia operations and is actively involved in their insurance operations across multiple countries in Southeast Asia. His key areas of intervention are leadership development, culture strengthening, and innovation in data analytics. He's on the board of Paramount, a leading healthcare service provider based out of India. He's on the advisory board of Symbo platform, an Insurtech based in Singapore. He maintains his interest in academics, and he's on the advisory board of BeamTech, a leading management institute of India. Sanjeev is a Fulbright scholar in management from the Carnegie Mellon University, Pittsburgh, and a PhD in economics. Adrit Raha is the co-founder and co-CEO at Symbo, one of the fastest growing insurtechs in the region. His focus is scaling the technology platform globally with partners across India, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. The platform supports agents, TPAs, brokers, corporates, and insurers in the seamless purchase, distribution, and administration of insurance across India and Southeast Asia. Prior to joining Symbo, Adrit brings over 16 plus years of experience, having worked with global insurers like AIG and RSA across multiple markets, and most recently leading a health tech insurtech startup called Vivant before it was merged into Symbo. Adrit is a bachelor's in arts from Knox College and an MBA from the University of Strathclyde. So let us start the fireside chat. We are delighted to be welcoming two very special guests for the fireside chat episode of FS Brew. I'd like to welcome Dr. Sanjeev Jha, who is the founder and principal of Strumng. I'm sure you will correct me on the spelling later. A niche consultancy service focused on developing competencies of insurers, insurance brokers, distributors, service providers, and emerging insurtech entities. Also, today we have on call with us Adrit Raha, who is the co-CEO and co-founder of Symbo Insurance, a Singapore-based platform offering digital market-ready solutions for Southeast Asia and India's insurance providers, brands, affinity, and end customers. So welcome and thanks for joining me on the FS Brew podcast and videocast. Happy to have you here.
Very happy to be here, Ranjit. Very happy to be here.
Thanks, Ranjit. Good to be here.
And I'm conscious you're in India and Singapore, so we don't want to keep you waiting for too long. So let's get into it. So first, I'd like to ask you, how and why did you come to join the insurance industry? I mean, it's not usually a very sexy industry that people start to aspire to. So perhaps, Sanjeev, we'll hear from you and then go to Adrit.
Wonderful question. So I joined the insurance industry many years, decades back. And I think the primary reason, Ranjit, for joining was that I was told that if you join the insurance industry in India that time, and that time it was all in the government sector, so it was in the public sector, you get a house. Now that's a huge perk because you get an apartment to live in Bombay. So that was my prime motive. I said I must qualify, join the insurance industry so that, at some point or the other, I'll get an apartment to live in Bombay, which I did. So I was very fortunate to be living as a young couple that time.
Yeah.
In our own independent flat in Bombay. So that was quite exciting.
Fantastic. That's a great story. How about you, Adrit?
Well, mine's probably funner, but less glamorous as Sanjeev's. So I was loitering around a golf course in a small country in the Middle East when Sanjeev happened to find me. And it was completely by chance that we met, of course. But most importantly, convinced me to join a very interesting industry called insurance. Wasn't sure what I was getting into, of course, at that time, but I must say, learned from one of the best, and have absolutely no regrets being part of this.
Fantastic, fantastic. That means we have to talk about golf insurance at some point. So here we go again. So guys, obviously we are going through a humanitarian tragedy, and coming out of it, and hopefully with all the vaccination trend going in the right direction. So what are the sort of main customer trends that you're both seeing in the insurance industry during last year, and what do you think will stay beyond the COVID pandemic? Maybe I'll throw it off to Sanjeev first, and then Adrit.
I think Ranjit, there were a couple of things that impacted all of us when COVID came in the radar sometime in January of 2020. I think that was a time when all of us in our risk committees, we realized that there's a possibility a flu about to emerge across the world. Of course, that time we didn't know it's going to be a pandemic of this calamity.
Yeah.
So a couple of things happened. One was obviously the entire race towards digital and saying that, how do we keep our lights on when we can't access offices? I don't think people realized at that time that it was such a dramatic change in behavior, because subsequent to, after a few months of being there, and now actually more than a year of being there, what has become very, very visible is that employees want an option to work from wherever they want to work. They don't want to be forced to come to office. They would like to come to office, but they don't want to be forced to come to office. Customers definitely don't want to come to a crowded place. They never wanted to come to a crowded place earlier, but we were sort of, we were ignoring it. But now definitely that has become very clear. Intermediaries, again, they will follow where the customers are. So that's again something that is happening. Mm-hmm. Now that is the visible manifestation of what happened in the pandemic, that you have to maintain distance, physical distance. But what that does to the insurance industry was very, very dramatic, and is still going through. If as the saying goes, insurance is sold and there are insurance agents. So insurance by nature has been a very physical handshake, going for a drink with a broker, meeting a client. It's been a very, very physical interaction, sort of building the trust. Now, all that has to be done through a Zoom or through a MS Team, which has been a fairly dramatic shift in the way people are behaving and the people have to engage. The good old school of, hey, take him out for a drink or to go out for lunch or go out for dinner, that is over now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a change that is happening. Yeah. So that's a major thing. Now, what is also happening behind it at the management level is that the entire buzzword of agility has become very alive. Mm-hmm. I think companies that are going to survive are companies that are very, very agile. And for that, if you go a bit more back, if you really go down deep, the companies that will be agile will be companies which have a very strong culture, mm-hmm. which have an empowered culture, which allows individuals to work from wherever. So there's no physical reporting line. So these are all dramatic changes in the way management was done till March of 2020. And as the months are progressing, I think they're all changing with that. Yeah. I don't think the jury is out. I don't think the conclusion has been reached. I think there is still scope to fine tune and evolve the post-pandemic way of doing business, not merely for insurance, but I think for the wider financial services and many other businesses.
Yeah. What about you, Adrit?
Yeah, no, I think I'd have to echo with Sanjeev. Quite robustly covered. I think from a perspective of customer trends specifically, is that I guess customers want everything at their doorstep, right? And I think I'll give you two examples where I've seen an impact that's been significant, and then there's an impact that's yet to be proven, right? And if you look at the world of, I think, communication, what we are doing today, and perhaps what we have had to evolve to, is a massive skyrocket in the entire visual communication tools, right? So Zoom, yeah. Microsoft Teams, Google, and you're seeing a significant adoption of that across both consumer personal and consumer sort of commercial, right? In the sense of business. Yeah. What you're also seeing is an interesting spike, and this is the parallel that I'll draw to it. So that's a good example of where things have been revolutionized and probably here to sort of stay. As Sanjeev said, the jury is not yet out, so it'll be interesting to see where that stabilizes. But I think that's definitely an area that's been completely disrupted. The other, which is interesting, is closer to sort of insurance and insurtech, is you see the world of telehealth, telemedicine, right? Yeah. And whether or not that really plays a part in sort of disrupting our healthcare and health tech landscape, or insurance and insurtech landscape. That is a bigger question, right? In my view, I think that still is yet to be seen whether or not that's going to create a completely differentiated impact or not, because that does still need physical touch, that still needs physical interaction, and that's where I think it's a balance of both. So the reason I gave you the two examples, and one of the things we do is, we do try and work in the phygital or retail space quite a lot when you look at embedded insurance, right? Mm-hmm. And we have a firm belief that retail and face-to-face isn't going away. I think it's going to become more efficient. And I think digital is going to play a part there. And I think that's been proven by sort of the entire COVID impact.
Yeah, no, that's very good. So Adrit, staying with you, you're very much in the APAC ecosystem now. And we hear a lot of noise about insurtech, a lot of funding. Yeah. So what would you say is driving insurtech in APAC so much, and why is there such a tremendous amount of funding and activity?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think I'd like to break it up in two parts, right? So the first is, I have a firm belief. I think insurance has a long way to go before it becomes sexy, right? And I think that's an important one, right? I think it's important because I compare it to the banking revolution that's happened over the last 30 years, and banking is reasonably sexy. I don't mind operating a banking relationship through my mobile phone. I think insurance has a long way to go, and I think that's one of the big reasons why there's a lot of interest in insurance, right, or insurtech. And I think the second is when you look at the landscape across Asia Pacific, I think there's some key driving factors. You've got double-digit growth happening across South Asia and Southeast Asia. You've got sub 2% insurance penetration, and you've got a whole lot of friction. And what I mean by friction is it's just inefficient, whether it's the payouts to intermediaries or whether it's the actual ability for a customer to get their policy or make a claim. Yeah. And I think those are the real reasons why insurance needs to be disrupted, right? Needs to be solved for in a lot of ways. And it's drawing the right kind of attention from investors and hopefully incumbents.
Yeah. No, I think those are important points. I think the friction aspect is absolutely critical. Switching to Sanjeev a bit, you've had a long and varied career across multiple countries, Oman, Sri Lanka, India. Tell us, in your opinion, what is the commonality in the insurance industries there, and where and how is it different?
Yeah, Renjit, I think we are blessed to be in a trade which is genuinely global. I think if you've done insurance in Brazil, you'll know insurance in Mumbai. So I think that's the magical thing of contracting a risk and pricing a risk is the same science. I think where the differences happen is really which football team do you follow, or do you follow a football team, or do you just look at cricket? But ultimately, people are the same. I've realized that, and I've been fortunate, Ranjit, as you said, I've worked with many different cultures and with many different people. Even now, I'm involved with the businesses in Vietnam and Malaysia, Indonesia, and I think what resonates very, very clearly is that ultimately, all of us want to do a good job. We want a pat on the back. We want to go home. We want to feel loved. We want to feel grateful. We want to feel happy. And that's it. And that's really it. There's no magic science. And actually, insurance does allow us to do that because I think it's when you look at the trade of insurance, it can be deemed as a fairly noble profession if you do it well. Yep. If the business is constructed well, where you do it well, and you're actually looking at building resilience in the society. Just on your previous question to Adrit, I think one of the things that I had recently done as part of the consultancy was done a survey of young kids. And when I'm saying young kids, younger than me, so the entire world is younger than me. Right. But basically, the age was from between 25 to about 40 people who are earning. And
the question as well.
Asked, yeah. So the questions are very simple, and the question was like, do you think you have a risk in life? And the answer was yes. We know there's a risk in life. what are the big risks? So physical health, mental well-being, economic stability. These were all the things. Do you think you need insurance? Yeah, I would love to have insurance. Do you know where to get insurance? No, I don't know.
Right.
Where would you go to get advice on insurance? Most probably to a friend and family.
Yeah.
So I think that's the friction that Adit was talking, is that there is a huge demand to mitigate risk. Huge demand, but somehow the insurance industry hasn't been able to tap it. And now possibly with the entire technology in place, I think with the change of behavior that this pandemic has forced on us, I think people like Symbo and Adrit are very well placed to really tap into that, and that entire demand that has been left untapped so far.
Yeah.
So very, very exciting space that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. When you ask that question, the commonality of the answers are very surprisingly similar, and perhaps it's the big tech, it's the exposure to the
Yeah.
same e-commerce platforms that we are
Yeah.
exposed to in the Middle East or in the India or in the US. The young population that you mentioned is almost pretty much having the same belief system. You would agree.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so yeah, it's interesting. It's also how can the insurers and insurtechs take advantage of that commonality and grow is a good question. Adrit, you wanted to chip in there?
Yeah, that's the best part, right? I mean, if you're able to solve for keeping life simple, keeping insurance simple, keeping it easily accessible, and most importantly, and I think this is the part which a lot of us, even me included, when I was in insurance, didn't think enough of, right? Was at the time of a claim, the moment of truth has to be easy. It's got to be convenient for the customer, and it's got to be something that they believe that they will get solved for them. And I think that's the big perception that hopefully we are able to impact, not just the ease of insurance distribution, but also the ease of the claims process.
Yeah, perfect. So Adrit, staying with you again a bit, so this is about technology, and we have seen how it's transforming the insurance landscape over the last, let's say, 5-6 years. It's kind of caught steam. So what, in your opinion, are some of the key technologies to watch out for? How is it transforming the insurance landscape? Adrit first, and then we'll go to Sanjeev.
Yeah, so technology is quite interesting, right? So I think technology is going to become a staple guy. That's the way I look at it, right? I think it's going to be an enabler to anything we do. That said, I think where we are today is we're seeing a lot of buzz around what I call low code and no code. And really, the definition in my head of what low code and no code is that it allows for anybody to use technology in an easy manner. So technology was previously clunky, difficult to maneuver, difficult to change, difficult to implement. I think now what we're seeing is that revolution where it's easy to implement, it's easy as a DIY sort of platform that allows somebody to buy a Zoom account online or buy or change sort of insurance product on a platform sitting on your own desk. I think that's really the transformation that we're seeing today, with an ultimate state that I think it's going to become, part and parcel of everyday life, and it's going to be an enabler to any business, really, more than anything else.
Right, Sanjeev.
Yeah, Ranjit, I think by default, most of the legacy insurers have sort of focused on the saving the cost part by using technology. And I'll come to the technology that is being used, but most of the insurance companies by default have spent most dollars in terms of how do I reduce the leakage in claims, how do I reduce the frauds, how do I control the possible bad loss adjustment.
Yeah.
And there the technologies that are really working and already working really smartly is all about data. I think the data science team have really cracked it beautifully. I've been using that. In my earlier companies, we used to be implemented with about 3-4 years back, and it's showing excellent results in terms of being able to find out leakages. I think the potential of data science is immense, because what it does is that it is allowing not only earlier we were using it as a post facto sort of analysis of, say, fraud or leakages. Now you can actually do it prior to onboarding a customer. So I can actually data science Ranjit and say, okay, I'm going to charge him extra money because he seems like a guy who can who can pay more, or things like that.
Yeah.
So that profiling happens, and then with that allows a bespoke journey of the customer journey, right from start to the renewal process. So which is a very, very exciting process. I think the other area is this entire process of image and voice. I think while image technology has been used fairly extensively and it's coming into place with the, especially on claims and motor claims and audit functions,
Yeah.
and also on medical, like as Adrit was mentioning, I think voice is something that is still emerging.
Yeah.
That's a very exciting area where by the voice intonations one can make out if there is credibility in the responses or not.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing technology that is being played around. The third area is around KYC. Like, how do I make sure that the insured is the insured, especially when you get down into the inclusive and that segment. So that's a big area.
Yeah.
And then of course the making it easy for the customer, by where Adrit is positioned with Symbo. How does technology make it really seamless between the point of sale, between the customer and the underwriter? I think that entire thing is a very magical piece. But overall, man, great stuff. It's very exciting just now what is happening on technology.
Yeah.
And hopefully the monies will keep flowing into the insurtechs and the insurance companies. So hopefully, that shouldn't dry out.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it does seem to be following some of the hype cycle, and if you look at the news today, it's all about crypto and Dogecoin and stuff like that. But if you look at the underlying technology, blockchain, it has tremendous utilization, ability to be used in insurance, right? I mean, after all, it's nothing but a three-party ledger and
Absolutely,
smart contract.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. And especially when there's so much concern on privacy, like for example, all of us are concerned about our privacy, but if I have a road accident, I'm okay for the ambulance to read part of my data.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the blockchain thing really comes in, that you can give access to different components to different people, and that makes it quite easy to bind a contract amongst a third party and amongst three or four or more parties. So,
Absolutely. Adrit, do you want to chip in on the technology front?
Yeah, so I think just Sanjeev was absolutely right. So interestingly, we've experimented with a claims process for our recently launched shoe insurance initiative in India,
right,
where the claims process actually is visual recording of the person talking about the damage of the shoe, purely for the reason that, as Sanjeev mentioned, that the typical physical recording actually, A, you're able to detect fraud instances, but B, the nature of humans are such that you would be less inclined to register a fraudulent claim if you were recording your own self. So it's quite interesting to see both these dynamics play out. But I think from a Symbo perspective, Renjit, technology is absolutely key to what we do, right? I think that is the backbone of our business and the innovation that we sort of lead. And we're really, really passionate about the fact that we bring technology to incumbents, whether they're insurers or brokers, or whether they're big brands, and really enable that distribution strategy for insurance for them. And that's all hinged on the fact that you've got these clunky, old, archaic platforms that are very difficult to maneuver. So sort of that's where we come in, and we're seeing a lot of movement in that technology platform space.
Moving on to the next question. What do you think about the relationship between insurtechs and insurance, and generally the insurance value chain? How do you think this relationship has evolved? Where do you think it's going? Adrit, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So, I think it's quite interesting because we obviously faced this for the last few years in terms of, what are you doing? Are you trying to disrupt the space, and are you trying to take over my space? It's sort of this boundary sort of question. I mean, listen, I think we've always had a very, very firm position in the way we approach our business as an insurtech startup, right? Which is we want to work with incumbents. We want to work with existing insurers and brokers, and we want to sort of use that as an opportunity to disrupt sort of the entire process that we're focusing on, which is around distribution and efficiency. I think there are players in the insurtech landscape that are clearly working towards disrupting the entire insurance space.
Yeah.
I think taking a step back, we're probably at the cusp, right? I think we're still just barely seeing some of the disruption that's coming through be it with incumbents or be it in general. And I think it's quite interesting. It's going to be, in my view, a 30-year journey, as it has been for various other industries, and we're just at the cusp of it. So yeah, that's where I think we're seeing that.
Yeah. And Sanjeev, you've been on the other side. Perhaps you've been approached by Insurtech. How has the relationship evolved?
I think it's been very good, and very early, like I think more than 5-6 years back, I realized two things. One is that the people who are behind Insurtech are supremely bright in areas of technology, which we guys in the insurance industry don't have that skill set. We have great technology people, but that the techies that are there in Insurtech are really at the edge, so that's a big difference. The second thing I realized is that they are very hungry to do something, to change the world. Now, both these are great. So if you have incredible talent and you have a desire to change the world, and as the legacy insurance company, I have the data, I have the money, and I have the customers.
Yeah.
So my offer to the guys, and it's actually worked, I think, and my offer to the guys, and I used to put it out on LinkedIn and stuff like that, saying, come and talk to me.
Yeah.
If you think you're bright and you have an idea, I have the data, I have the money, I have an office for you to sit. Come and talk to me. And that's how we sort of started very early with the entire fraud analytics sometime back when I was in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
We started a claim service, settlement for using a mobile phone and smartphone. This was pre-pandemic. And in fact, that one Fairfax, the company I was working for, that won the global award across Fairfax Group. So I think there's a bunch of smart kids running around all across the world.
Yep.
And there are legacy insurance companies who are desperately in need to find some agility. I think from a legacy perspective, I think I was quite clear that we'll try out 10 things. Most probably one is going to succeed.
Yeah.
The others will collapse, and that's fine. As long as the resources aren't too much, as long as the funding isn't too much. Favorite saying of mine is that keep trying, and let's fail quickly or succeed, quickly. Like, let's not waste too much time on that. But I think, as Adrit mentioned, it's not about changing the world on your own. I think especially in insurance, you can't do that. Yeah. By nature of the business, it's a sharing of risk. Right. So you can't change the world on your own. So you'll have to rely on multiple partners, and therefore this ability to work together, I think, is very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And one additional, strong point of the incumbents is that they have access to compliance, right? I mean, they hold the legal relationships with the regulators.
Right. Absolutely right. And I must say on that note, the regulators are like, as it happens with any new changes, I think the regulators are trying their best to catch up.
Yeah.
Like, I remember 30 years back, bank assurance was a big deal and the regulators didn't understand it. Then the mobile telephone insurance that happened, that they didn't understand that. Now Insurtech is happening. Now they won't understand that, but they will understand it over some time. So I think that's the nature of technology. That's the nature of innovation. It pushes the entire ecosphere to sort of evolve to a different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's quite interesting to see, Renjit. I don't know, we've had this experience ourselves with Dubai and Singapore creating these mini hubs, and all led by the actual government and the actual regulators, which is quite good to see them, well, as Sanjeev says, trying to keep up. So it's nice.
Indeed. Talking about innovation, how do you see the role of the so-called super apps like Grab, Gojek, or fintechs like PhonePe in insurance distribution? Is that going to increase, or is it just an attempt to emulate what has worked in China, for example, with WeChat and Tencent and all that? How do you see that going? Any one of you?
Okay, well, okay, I'll have a crack at it. I think it's so China is a beast by itself, right? And I mean that in a way where I think a closed framework really works. I think the concept of super apps are good. I think they're far from being proven, in my view. And the reason I'm quite convinced that I think from an insurance perspective, it's still a big question to me personally. The reason I say that is insurance is consumed, bought or sold, but consumed at the point of a need, really. So it's when you need something, right? So be it the embedded insurance products, when you're buying a mobile phone or buying your spectacles and you get a specific relevant product, or you're buying, a house or a big building and you need sort of the large commercial property type products. From my perspective, it's always at that point of need that you typically, find the solution of insurance. Now, super apps don't necessarily solve for that at this point. I think they solve for it at a very generalistic stage. Will that change in time? Most likely. And will that change for one core reason, which Sanjeev's already mentioned, which is around data and availability of data? Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's where we will potentially see a shift. But let me take another step back and just say, what's stopping Google or Apple from becoming the world's biggest insurance company? Yeah. Right? And I just leave that as a thought for us to perhaps, discuss.
Yeah. Sanjeev, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the primarily three parts of insurance, Ranjit. I think the distribution play will go to many entities. Like the like I said, like the bank assurance. Today's bank assurance is not the Citibanks and the HSBCs. It is these apps. It is the Alibabas, and that is a bank assurance today that we are having. The challenge of underwriting will remain. Now, whether that underwriting is owned by a Google or a XYZ, don't know. But definitely distribution will get shifted to all these various things. I don't think there'll be if there's a customer there, distribution will come. Insurance distribution will go there. Yeah. Underwriting will remain as a core entity, and it will be highly regulated. The entire area will be regulated. So that's going to be a different entity by itself. And then you have the third part, which is the claims management. And now claims management, I think, will get divided between the front end and the underwriters, and that's where it's going to come out. Traditionally, underwriters have been very, very picky about how to delegate the claims out. Yeah. But I think that those days are slowly going to get evolved because, again, of technology, data, and there'll be more comfort and more transparency coming in. So that's the way I see it evolving. It's not so much the app; it's basically like where is the customer. Where is she residing? And if she's going to XYZ app, there will be distribution there. There will be.
Yeah. And it just has to be done in a way that it makes sense to the customer is what I'm hearing from both of you. Yeah. Very good. Staying with China for a bit, when we look at now big companies like Ping An, there are tens of thousands of tech talent, perhaps even more tech people than underwriters and claims that you spoke about. Is this what modern insurance companies will look like? And how is the war for talent playing out, in your startup and from your insurance company days, Sanjeev? It'll be interesting to know.
Sanjeev, so Ping An has clearly set a different benchmark on using technology, Ranjit. Yeah. Absolutely a different benchmark, right? From their agency force to everything that's become so they've gone at a very different level, and it is generating fantastic results. From what I understand, it's saved them fair amount on the efficiency part and also on the profitability part. So clearly they're doing something extremely well. Will that skill set come to insurance company? Answer is definitely yes. It's like saying, will the insurance, like if you look back. If you look back to the insurance industry, say 40 years back when I joined, we didn't have computers at office. We had a computer room, right? And then the thing was, do you know how to use MS Word? Do you know how to use Excel? Do you know how to use Lotus? So these were the skills that were emerging, and now it's just routine. So I think all insurance companies, if you look 30 years down the line, all insurance companies will have a very strong tech team, or they'll have a partnership with a very strong tech team. But the issue is that will it happen in the next 1 year, 2 years? So that's where the challenge is, and that's where I think the insurance companies, the legacy companies, are also deciding where do they put their investments in. Yeah. The global majors like the AIGs and the AXAs and all those guys, Fairfaxes, they have their own incubation center where they're playing around with technology, and they just come and plug and play it as and when seamlessly done. Right. But for the smaller companies, I think that will be a bit of a challenge going ahead. But to answer you, if you look at the insurance industry 30 years down the line, will they have capabilities of Ping An? Answer is definitely yes. What Ping An will be quite different that time.
Yeah, indeed. So how is the war for talent playing out in your domain, Adrit?
So it's quite, so from our perspective, we're seeing obviously a lot of people that are interested in the world of startups, right? So we're seeing an interesting shift where maybe 10 years ago, and I can't go back 40, but I'll say 10 years ago, people were keen to go into, the traditional world of whether it was banking or sort of a suit and tie type job, or even at that point, perhaps some of the early starters of Facebook and Google and those interesting companies were emerging. What we're seeing now is a huge host of youngsters coming out and only wanting to be part of this new revolution of startup culture, right? Be it in a large organization or a small organization, the expectation is that you represent startup culture, you represent independence, you represent this entire sharing economy. I can work from home, I can do what I want, and I'm independent, and allow me that. To put it in perspective, that doesn't mean it's easy for us. We find it equally hard to get good talent, and we are finding it very, very difficult because while China has clearly proven that they've been able to sort of bring this huge machinery of both people, talent, and an example through the businesses that they've showcased, what we're seeing here is that there's still a dearth of good talent, and we see that in Southeast Asia. We see that good talent in India gets picked up and taken on with sort of the larger, more established startups. And I'm sure it's very similar in the Middle East, Renjit, where it's probably not the easiest place to come by the best tech talent. I think we will see that change. We will see that change. It will become a bit more prevalent, more relevant, and therefore more people will be available in the next few years. The question, as Sanjeev posed, and it's a very relevant question, is it now? Is it imminent? Is it going to impact the insurance sector today, or is it going to take some time? And I think time will only tell.
Yeah,
I think there's a very interesting capability gap, Ranjit, just on this theme.
Yeah.
It's the gap between insurance domain people and the tech people. Yeah. So while you have incredible data science people, and they can understand the problem of the insurance industry, but it's very difficult for them to make a CEO of a legacy system, make him understand that this is what it's going to do you. Yeah. And that's a huge gap just now currently.
Yeah.
And I think it's a tough challenge to fulfill as of now.
Yeah, I mean, hearing you say, I mean, I remember the times when we were in tech companies where you need somebody called a business analyst who would bridge the gap between business and technology. You almost need some sort of, I don't know what to call it, a data analyst who understands business very well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also Ranjit, Sanjeev, it's also because insurance is such a unique industry, right? I think it has come with its legacy and its stagnation of the way it has been, and all for good reasons for when it did come to be, right? But I think because it's so unique in the way it's operated, in the way the products are brought to life, the pricing is constructed, the distribution is managed, that if you don't have that bridge, it can certainly become challenging.
Right.
Agreed. It's a fascinating industry. At one level, the insurance companies are taking all the risk of the world.
Yeah.
At the other level, because they're taking all the risk, they have to be super conservative in their own risk taking. That's the irony of the insurance industry. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, now we'll do a little bit of crystal ball gazing, and I just want to ask both of you, what do you think? A couple of things that will change, let's say, in the next 5 to 10 years. And what will still remain the same? Maybe Sanjeev, you can go first.
I think my golf game is going to become better. that hope remains always. But okay, in terms of insurance, I think distribution is going to change dramatically. Mm-hmm. I think forget the term agency, because I know that within the term agency, many different types of entities are there, but the good old-fashioned manual agents force they're going to disappear.
Yeah.
I think, and it's going to disappear because of a simple reason, Ranjit, is that insurance as a product is becoming fungible. So earlier, because it was a manual process, we were forced to write, especially in the PNC side, we were supposed to write 1-year policies, because you just couldn't take the underwriting information for a day policy or or a half a day or a 6-month policy. It was just not possible. Now that technology has broken that barrier. So the need of an individual to go and fill up the form for a Renjit Philip is really not there anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, the people who are entrenched in the legacy, they talk about relationship and all that. I'm not a big fan of that. I think as what the pandemic has shown, people switch their behavior so quickly that it's just magical. So I think that entire distribution play is going to move from that individual agency, which is a big force today.
Yeah.
It's going to move to something else. We've already spoken about how the new bank assurance are the Alibabas and these are the new bank assurance players. The old banks are sort of losing their own steam. I think the other area is going to be on risk. I think there'll be a fair amount of parametric driven products coming up.
Yeah.
So like the entire underwriting will be driven based on parameters, which can be very quickly picked up from the entire public data that is available, whether it's on travel, whether it's on crop, whether it's on flooding, whether it's policies like wedding event cancellation. So you don't have to fill up a form now. You just know whether there's been a rain there, and the claim is processed. So I think that's going to change quite dramatically. I think with all this aspects, the regulator will keep chasing compliance, and that's going to be an interesting play because obviously no regulator wants to constrain the innovation that is there, but at the same time they need to understand what is happening to make sure that the public funds or the public trust that the insurance company is supposed to take is maintained. So I think that's going to happen. Yes, and these are a couple of thoughts, Ranjit.
Yep. Adrit, what do you think will change and what will remain the same?
Yes, I think it's quite interesting, right? So I think a couple of things. I think close to Sanjeev's point, I think close to the sort of entire space of parametrics. I've been quite close to and passionate about this entire UBI or usage based, right? And I think it's beyond usage. It's lifestyle based. It's usage based. It's circumstance based. And I think that's where insurance will move to, right? And I think that's one of the big changes that's going to happen. And I think it's going to follow the trend of the new millennial generation moving forward, which is the need to not have assets, the need to sort of embrace the sharing economy, the embracement of sort of the Airbnb concepts. So I think that's where I anticipate some of this movement will happen, where insurance will be based on sort of where you are, what you want, based on usage. If it was an auto insurance, some of the latest trends we are seeing is, when you're buying a cycle, you could get a cycle insurance, again, based on sort of usage of that product and your time on the cycle, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the areas that will change. I think an area that I still feel that, and probably slightly contradictory to Sanjeev's point around distribution, I think I still believe that the regions that we represent in Southeast Asia and India are still very, very, still have time to evolve, right? And while e-commerce as a revolution is happening and the super apps are certainly picking up pace, I still firmly believe that I think the phygital construct of transaction, the O2O as I call it, which is the physical, digital, or online to offline, are still areas that will continue for a foreseeable future. And again, time will tell if things don't, but that's my view for at least India and the broader Southeast Asian sort of region.
Yeah. And I agree with Adrit just now. So I just moved back to Delhi after being out for some years, and it's such a pleasure, Ranjit, because we stay in this apartment in an area, and every 2 hours or something, or 1 hour, we have this cart fellow roaming around selling different things,
right?
Mangoes and stuff like that. So that is very, very physical, very, very goes back hundreds of years, and the man is actually on a cart and either cycling and selling all these house to house.
Yeah.
But you buy the stuff and you make payment, and he has a UPI for payment.
Yeah.
So he doesn't take cash.
This is a wallet,
you just
right?
transfer so which is magical. So you have this entire combination of the physical world, the old school world, but transacting in a very, very and all around the customer convenience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that remains that will never change. I think the focus on customer convenience will never change.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything more to add, Adrit?
No, I think that was it.
Perfect. Very good. Gentlemen, that has been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a lot by asking you questions. It's very easy for me to just ask questions and learn. So I love this format. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining us on the FS Brew podcast and videocast. And we hope to have you back again for a fireside chat at some other time.
No, thanks, Renjit. And thank you, Sanjeev, as always.
Take care, Adrit. And Renjit, let us know when you're back from San Francisco.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.